everybody. Randy Patterson here again with Boomerocity. As you already know, if you follow Boomerocity at all, we love the blues here. Absolutely love the blues. And I get especially excited if I get to turn you guys on to someone that maybe you haven't heard from, especially if you're outside of that artist area of domain or their home base. That's the case with a gentleman I just found out about last week by the name of Clay Melton, a young blues artist who is up and coming. And man, is he ever great, man. The first opening strains I heard of his latest single, and I was immediately hooked. Clay is an amazing blues artist that I know you'll want to follow for many years to come. Very tight, very bluesy, it's as if he had been to the crossroads already. So I really hope you listen to this interview, and more importantly, go check out all of his music. It's all on all the streaming platforms, and I hope you buy his music. It's one thing to listen to it. They get a fraction of a penny each time you listen to it. Buy the music. That's how they make their living in addition to live shows. So please invest in great artists that you fall in love with. So also, when you're all done, I ask that you please subscribe to this channel and like the interview when you see it here on YouTube, or download it and like from whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. So until next time, this is Randy Patterson with Boomerocity. Take care. So you're calling in from where?
Houston, Texas.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that big parking lot down there. So,
yeah, it's a couple.
Yeah, the Atlanta of Texas is what I call it. So
no lie, it's a lot. It's huge.
Yeah, well, I spent a lot of time where I lived for the better part of 20 something years in the Dallas area, and
okay, all right.
Now I'm up in the Smoky Mountains of East Tennessee. So
nice,
a little bit slower pace. I kind of like it that way. So. Thank you for joining me. John, your publicist, sent me your information. He knows I'm a blues nut, so I'm not a blues expert, but I know what I like when I hear it. So,
yeah.
When he sent me your latest, I thought, wow, I love this. This is great.
Cool.
So,
all right, cool.
So tell Boomerocity viewers. Well, first of all, before you get there, I know everybody was impacted by the pandemic and gigs, vaporized overnight, all that kind of thing. How did that impact you, and what's the post-pandemic world like for you?
Everything, we were affected obviously like everybody else, and we had tour plans that, got put to bed. And I think everything kind of led to our pivot being what ended up happening is the live album we recorded last year. We recorded in January of last year and put out in June. And I'm really glad we took that step coming out of the pandemic when things started opening again, because it was a very raw representation of where we were at. And, one of the things I liked about the idea of doing a live album is we had been trying to capture the sound of what we sound like in a room, and said, so why not just do it live? And then a lot of the songs that were recorded and released on that album, those were the very first time they'd ever been played live. So we got a year of touring them last year and playing the hell out of them now. And so we're revisiting some of those for the new recordings, for in-studio versions, because they've grown in different ways. And so it kind of set off a journey for, what we're doing now.
That's kind of interesting that I know it's not the first time it's been done, but typically people do a studio version, or at least a rehearsed version before going into the studio, and then just maybe record live. Hey, this is coming out on our next studio album, but you're doing it live, and then it's going to go to Memorex, so to speak. You're too young to know what I mean by that, but old commercial for old geezers like me. So tell Boomerocity visitors who Clay Melton is, how long you've been doing this, when did you first get into the guitar, that kind of stuff.
Sure. Well, first off, we're a blues rock and roll trio from Houston, Texas. I was born in Lake Charles, Louisiana, but grew up playing music here in Houston. There's a lot of rich blues history here in Houston, Texas, and I was fortunate enough to grow up going out to a lot of open mics around a lot of older players that were welcoming and mentoring. I first got into guitar hearing All Along the Watchtower in my dad's car when I was about 10. I just fell in love with that solo, really blew my mind. And so I was just hooked on Hendrix and guitar from there. And growing up in Texas, I obviously was exposed to a lot of country. Um, I got my dad's cassette suitcase when I was a kid. He handed that down to me, and so there was a lot of classic rock in there, a lot of Texas country, and so I was listening to all that from early on, and especially growing up. We were playing in the garage from the time when I was sixth grade. Me and my buddy Kyle Tom Chetson, who's now our tour manager, we were playing just drums and guitar, sweating in the garage for hours after school, and so went from crawfish boils to clubs, and have been playing out live since I was 13. I'm 28 now, and we're on our coming up on our fourth record.
So, what have you jammed or had any interaction with any of the Texas blues greats, like say, Johnny Winter or Stevie Ray or Jimmy or any of those guys?
You know, I missed a lot of players I would have loved to have to just been able to see. I definitely have grown up seeing a lot of great players. My first serious concert was seeing Clapton with Derek Trucks and
Oh,
Dole
wow.
Bramall II playing with him, and that was very, very inspirational. Just this past January, we played a festival, the Lukenbach Blues Festival. It was the 14th annual, and we got to bill with Sue Foley, who's a great, fantastic guitarist.
Mhm.
Um, and so her and Cedric Burnside was also on that festival, and they were both fantastic to see. So I mean, yeah, there's no lack of, just like over there in Tennessee, of fantastic acts to learn from and watch growing up. We played we opened for Grand Funk Railroad um, 2 years ago at the State Fair, and Night Ranger this most recent year. So we've had some fun times opening as well,
Did you
sharing the
get to
stage.
interact with um gosh, the name just slipped my mind. It's guitar player for Grand Funk. I've interviewed him like 3 times. Used to be with Kiss. Kulick. Bruce Kulick. Did you get to chat
Di- I
with him at all?
I didn't. I
Oh,
didn't.
that's too bad.
They had a different array of their lineup. I know obviously is an original, but no, I didn't get a chance to speak with them.
Yeah, I think he's still with them the last I checked, because he's been with them for quite a while. And Mark Farner's hard to replace, but if you're going to replace him, Bruce is the guy, because he's phenomenal, and his pedigree is quite impressive as well. But the band's still good. It's been probably about 11 or 12 years since I've seen them, but they were great then. I'm sure they're still great. But what you said Hendrix? What were you able to replicate any of? Were you able to replicate that solo that turned you on to
I definitely played the hell out of it. Whenever I first got into, I mean, obviously it was that song. I was listening to a lot of live versions of it that I could find. And I had this like beat up Toys R Us electric guitar before I had a real guitar. I had like a speaker in the center, so
him?
it sounded electric. It was missing strings and out of tune, but I would try and note out solos on like one string, and um, and I think like that kind of approach. I did that for almost a year, and I'm sure it sounded terrible in the house, but I think that kind of approach lent me to when I had an instrument to dig in out, just trying to feel it out by ear, and just use feeling and what felt right and what sounded right to my ear, rather than trying to learn the notes and names yet, and the technical stuff. But yeah, no, when I got into Hendrix, I got into all of his influences that he would talk about and cover. The same with Stevie Ray. I got into him shortly after, and he has a lot more interviews available talking about influences as well. So I got into a lot of older blues players. I mean, and went all the way back, Son House and Robert Johnson, and Freddie King's, I think, my favorite King, but I love them all. And so that really shaped my early listening years and playing years for sure.
It just happened to dawn on me that Stevie would have been gone probably before you were born. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes. Just
I
by a couple
actually
years.
I actually attended his funeral. I was
No lie.
yeah, seriously. A funny story. I was married at the time. My daughter was, I don't know, 4 or 5 years old. She's a little bit older than you. She's about 10 years older than you. But I was registering for college. I worked full time, but I took that day off, and it was the day of his funeral. And
Wow.
long story short, we wound up dropping in on it there in South Dallas where they buried him. And when we walked up, it was Stevie Wonder, Bonnie Raitt, and Jackson Brown standing at the podium singing Amazing Grace a cappella. Best concert I ever heard, I think. I mean, just
Wow.
mind blowing. Of course, Jimmy was there. I've interviewed Jimmy 2 or 3 times and seen him perform a couple times. But what a tragic loss, and you can't help but wonder what could have been, on something like
No,
that.
yeah. That's an incredible thing to witness.
Yeah.
I've read accounts and came across a video somewhere on the internet of them singing at his funeral, and
Oh, really? I haven't even seen that. I
yes,
need to see that.
I can't remember where I saw it. I'm sure it's somewhere on YouTube, but it was very, very moving. They're releasing a new, I guess it's a bioflick, about the Vaughn brothers.
Yeah.
I just saw they're doing a screening here at a great venue here in Houston, Heights Theater. Um, but they're doing a screening of that, and they have a bunch of great artists. Clapton, I think maybe Beck got an interview on there before he passed. And so it looks really, really, really,
Probably
really interesting.
probably Gibbons too, huh? Billy Gibbons.
I believe he is, of
Yeah,
course,
you'd almost
Texas
have to if
royalty,
you're going to do a documentary on the Bond brothers. You got to talk to Billy Gibbons.
certainly.
So tell me about this latest recording of it. I know we got the
Yeah, I was
cover
gonna
for it
say.
here. I hope you're not missing those covers. I needed them for my backdrop. But tell me about this and where you're heading with all this, and what I hope new fans can expect from you tied to this.
Yeah, the song, compared to Live in Texas, is definitely on the rock side of rock blues. It's very rock and roll, and I think it's kind of like the farthest rock and roll that a lot of the tracks on this upcoming album will be. But I think it's a nice. It's kind of why I wanted to come out with this one out of the gates, and kind of just put it all out there. We've been recording all our new stuff at here in my living room for the new album,
Mhm.
which is a different experience. We've done a lot of different studio experiences, and they're great. They get expensive, and it's just very nice for us to be able to take our time with the tracks here and experiment. So it's been a learning process tracking all the drums. My living room is basically consistently set up with wires and cables everywhere. But it's been a lot of fun. And then Sebastian Cure, who also mixed our last live album, lives down in Colombia, and so we've been sending him the tracks to mix. And Kevin Butler mastered the track. We're excited about it. It's coming out this Friday, February 24th.
Fantastic. I can't wait to hear the rest of it. So I mean, obviously a lot of people have gotten a sneak listen to the whole album. I mean, I got to hear this song, but what's the feedback? I mean, I know I love this song, so I can only imagine what the whole album sounds like. What are you hearing back from people that's heard it?
Well, we're still in process, and we still have one more single before we're gonna start launching the album, I guess, like tour cycle and campaign. But I think for the next track that we have in the barrel, it's people have been saying it's like the live album but amped up, and really, and that is like the challenge I said earlier that I think we've been chasing is how do we get this live sound that we have in a room on tape. And I think that's what this process has allowed is us to dig in on that and to be as loud as we want.
Cool, cool. Seeing all that arrangement back there behind you, the first thing that come to mind is Pro Tools must be a wonderful thing for you, right?
Oh yeah, I mean it's amazing that we're able to do this just in my living room with very little acoustic consequences. Um, the biggest challenge is really is drums, being such an acoustic instrument. A guitar amp, we can pretty much close mic and record anywhere. Um, but it is a blessing not paying for tape. Just like it is. I can't imagine paying for studio time and tape these days.
Yeah, tape's gotten very expensive, I'm told. It's a killer. So, kind of going back into your career again, jumping back a little bit, should have asked you this sooner. Um, so far up to this point, what's been the highest point of your career? Whether it's a gig you played, somebody you've played with, somebody you got to jam with, someone you got to meet as a result of your career. What, in your mind, as it stands right now at your very young age, what would be your highest point?
It's always a tough question to pick out one, but a relationship I'm grateful for and has brought some of our more exciting performance opportunities is meeting and starting to work with Glenn Smith, who ran Glenn Smith Presents and booked us at the State Fair of Texas, where we opened for Daughtry and Grand Funk Railroad and Night Ranger. And he's just a fantastic guy to work with, and that stage is amazing. He was Garth Brooks' promoter for 32 years, and just really but he doesn't act like it, and I'm very thankful that he gave us an opportunity to start playing on his stages, and that those are some of the most fun times. The stage of the State Fair of Texas is very, very Texas. It's in Dallas, outside the
Yep,
Cotton Bowl,
been there several
and
times.
the main stage has those two Chevrolet trucks above the stage, which is kind of scary when you first step onto it because you're like checking out the rigging and everything, but it's just
Thank God
very,
it's not a Ford, right? So,
many would agree.
and I own neither, so there you go. So, yeah, I've been to that stage. It's been a long time since I've been that stage, but it's I think the last person I saw perform there was believe it or not, Lisa Marie Presley. And I
Oh
just saw a
wow.
little bit of her gig there way when she come out with that first album of hers. But yeah, what a great place to what just curious, what from your knowledge, what do you think, what demographic makes up your fan base, your followers, the people that seem to keep coming or those that give you the most feedback? What demographic do they fall into? I'd be curious to know what that is.
It's always surprising to see where we get our reactions. Surprising just in an interesting way because um, people are always surprising you. But obviously the guitar lovers and blues lovers are keen on our performances, and there's sometimes where we're playing in front of maybe a more blues purist crowd where there's you see the conversion throughout the show, where the arms are crossed whenever we play the first real loud tune. And then, some people are on board, some people aren't. That's the thing about performing, right? You never know. But on our last summer tour opening for Blues Rock, the Bluestones and Des Rocks, they had a younger fan base than I'd say we typically play to here in the South, and it was a Northeast run. And they're both more rock and roll acts, but I was very, very excited and encouraged by how many people of all ages were there. I could tell that they just liked guitar oriented acts,
Yeah,
which is refreshing to see,
yeah.
because both those bands are as well. And so, I'd say it's anybody that likes rock and roll.
Ah, cool. Good deal. So, what are your future plans, both in the near term, say for 2023, and then beyond? Where do you hope you and the band are 5 years from now?
5 years from now, I'd love to be playing, a steady festival circuit, playing the theaters everywhere. We want to get everywhere, man. Everywhere that people have been asking us to come, and we have EU plans for 2024. This year, it's going to be we have the single Live on the Wire coming out Friday, another single coming out in April, and we're supporting those with tour in the Northeast. The first stint starts in April at the Baton Rouge Blues Festival over there in Louisiana, and then we're in the Northeast through spring, and we'll be back in Chicago in the Northeast through the summer. So you can find all our tour dates online, and we'll be busy on the road in the States this summer.
Cool. Well, I'll have the link on the page on the website page, and then of course we'll tell people about it when this video posts, probably next week sometime, um, on our YouTube channel and on the podcast, of course. But that's I tell you what, man, like I told you at the beginning, when John sent me the link to your single, I became a fan immediately. And I look forward to hearing you for many more years to come. And hopefully you'll get here near my neck of the woods. If you're within a couple hours, man, I'm going to come see you.
Sure will be. Oh, we'll definitely let you know when we're on the road by you.
All right,
I
sounds
appreciate you
good.
having me on.
All right. Well, hey, Clay, anytime, my door is open to you. Whenever you got something new, let's chat. Let's set up one of these and let everybody know what you're up to. Okay.
Rock and roll sounds good.
All right, buddy. Take
Thanks.
care and stay safe.
You too.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.